In one of my more recent videos, I mentioned very briefly the idea of the black school. So I want to speak briefly about polarity to clear up exactly what I'm going to mean when I use these terminologies, the difference between black and white, and the difference between a school, a lodge, roughly speaking like a brotherhood, and then a path. So there are 3 schools of magic, according to Magic Without Tears by Aleister Crowley. The Black School is, the signature of the Black School is the first noble truth of Buddhism. Life is suffering. It is a denial of existence. Either you think existence isn't real, that there's some sort of demon tricking you into believing in the things of your environment. So certain schools of Buddhism talk about samsara, or Hinduism talks about, certain schools of Vedantism talk about Maya, which is the goddess who's the illusion of reality. In Christianity, we have creator-creature distinction. So what's important is the destiny of your immortal soul, getting into heaven. Your life is important, but it's important as a sort of examination to analyze the character of your soul, to determine your destiny in the afterlife. Magicians of this character who believe fundamentally that life is suffering and want to overcome it by some transcendent state to get above life. This is the Black School mentality, and it's nihilistic. What it means is that you would prefer, all things being equal, to be dead. Buddhists want to reach nibbana, which is a state of wanting for nothing, but it's also but it's also a state removed from existence. You want for nothing because you don't exist, and Buddhists have the same thing, like a sort of union with Brahma thing that's above Maya. Sorry, Vedantists have the same thing, sort of union with Brahma thing, sort of above Maya, when your karma is balanced. And for Christians, they speak about it in terms of life everlasting, but what they mean is no more earthly existence, to go up and to be with God and the saints in heaven. So that's the Black School. The Yellow School is a balance between the black and white. They seek to live wholly passively. They believe in the reality of existence, but there's some underlying force. I'll use the Tao as an example, because the Tao is sort of the example premateria of this school of philosophy, that if you can become ultimately passive and receptive to life and you'll just move smoothly through it. This is the Bruce Lee quote where he says, becomes like water. This is the idea that if you come to a boulder in the road, you just wait for erosion to remove the boulder, and then you don't have to do anything. You can sit there for 250,000 years, just wait for the water to erode the boulder enough that you can slip by and carry on your path. It's not even clear for the Taoist where you would be going. I mean, the commentary, the Guanzu, I think, commentary that is on the AA reading list says, in the old time, the rulers ruled by doing nothing. And so that's the ideal, and that's going to be important in season 3 of Twin Peaks. Mike, come on. Then the last school is the White School, which acknowledges that life is suffering, but sees this as a kind of error. and if it can be worked out, then you can, just like in Buddhism, where all pleasures are seen as temporal, and then the pleasures end, and then you suffer even more because you miss the thing you miss the thing you like. In the White School, there's sort of a bittersweetness, a kind of agony and ecstasy tinge to everything, where there's a sweet kind of sorrow in recognizing the moment, and realizing that certain things will end, and that's okay, because even the pain of division is a kind of ecstasy. I'm not finding the right words to explain this, but in the Book of the Law we are told existence is pure joy. These sorrows are but shadows that pass and are done, but there is that which remains, and that thing that remains is pure joy, which is not rejoicing, although we are tasked to rejoice every day in your heart in the joy of your rapture, but the joy is sort of warmness and a bubbly openness to life, which includes also the sorrow, the bittersweet sorrow of temporality. And I'm using two sentimental terms because it's not sentimentality either, but there's a sweetness. There's a sweetness all across in the texture of life that is liberating. So those are the schools. Existence is pure joy, life is suffering, and the middle path. White, black, yellow. All of those are sort of worldviews, beginning positions that define the character of the work you want to do as you move along your path toward return. And then also they define the character of your revelation when you finally have your samadhi experience and work beyond, and then talk about it in relationship to that worldview. They define your philosophy. But the attainment in all three is the same. The blank, if you do the yoga work, you get to samadhi and to states beyond. And the union with the divine, you get it. It's positive. We can quibble about what the correct philosophy is, but none of these schools are evil. They're perspectives from which to approach the work. Left hand and right hand path. Again, this is related to the right hand path. The aspirant seeks to dissolve into ecstasy. This is the samadhi experience. They want to vaporize their own consciousness into the divine consciousness and achieve that kind of experience of radical non-existence. Whereas in the left-hand path, you want to exalt the character of the self, clarify and purify the ego and the aspiration, and work towards becoming more and more more and more powerful as an individual. And again, neither of these things is evil, and we argue, at least in Thelema, about whether Thelema is left-hand or right-hand path, because when around the attainment of the knowledge and conversation of the holy guardian angel, there's more and more and more of an exaltation of the self, a strengthening of the ego, an enhancing of the person, a commitment to rigorous self-discipline that allows you to become an appropriate vessel to receive the teaching of the Holy Guardian Angel. But then after that, when we're moving up towards the abyss, the aspirant in the abyss has to give up all the blood in the body and seek to become just a little pile of sand in the city of pyramids. So you do left-hand path stuff for a little while, and that fortifies you to be able to take the right-hand path. And so the two things are not mutually exclusive, although some people, modern Satanists and Levites and Setians, will say that they are mutually exclusive, and I think Christian mystics, if they even engage with the terminology at all, which I don't think they do, would probably be suspicious of left-hand path ideology, because anything that's personally empowering is in a way contrary to the teachings of Christ. You want to be always in commune with Jesus, always giving away your wealth, always concerned about caring for the sick. In the Book of the Law, we see people saying, "Care not for the sick and the sad, they are not of me," or something like that. I can't remember the exact quotation off the top of my head right now. Now, the lodges, the Great White Brotherhood and the Black Brotherhood of the left-hand path. Not the same left-hand path that we were just discussing. This is, your alignment here is not defined until the moment of the crossing of the abyss. You know, you can do everything right all the way up till there. Probably not. Probably if you're going to end up doing the Black Brother thing, then the cracks are going to start to show earlier. But the important thing is the courage and the discipline and the consistency in yoga that allows you to cross the abyss. You forget your name, you forget your job, you forget your spouse and your family, you forget your identity. Nuit says, if under the night skies in the desert thou presently burnest mine incense before me, invoking me with a pure heart and the serpent flame therein, thou shalt come a little to lie in my bosom. Then for one kiss wilt thou be willing to give all, but whoso gives one particle of dust will lose all in that hour. So the successful crossing of the abyss is an eradication of the self, which is temporary. You get to come back down and then cross again. As you develop your power to make samadhi on different objects and make dharana on different objects, and as that expands into longer excursions of yoga. Or even Crowley says that his samadhi is sort of a consequence of the knowledge and conversation of the Holy Guardian Angel. So you can do it magically too, but the idea is that is that you lose yourself, and this is the final admittance into the Great White Lodge. You become sort of one of the guardians of the earth, making subtle spiritual decisions and teaching on a subtle level and interfering gently in the affairs of man from a back seat. Let my servants be few in secret; they shall rule the many and the known. This is the Great White Brotherhood, and all of the schools of magic on Earth. Anything that truly initiates, that's truly creating magicians, and there are a lot that aren't. There are a lot of false schools, just cults of personality, legitimately scary cults, or just like squib lodges that sort of form and don't do very much and then disappear again. But if you're going to do successful work, it's because of a connection to the Great White Brotherhood. So whether you're a Tibetan Buddhist or a Theosophist who likes to imagine that there are Tibetan Buddhists like Cooper, or whether you're in the OTO or the AA or branches of Masonry or Theosophy, or whether you're a Luciferian or a Setian, there are dozens that I'm forgetting, but whatever your alignment that way, Golden Dawn, the hope is that you're in contact with some spiritual envoy from the Great White Brotherhood, and that you're able to communicate true light, which fortify your teachings with a kind of inspiration. If you fail to cross the abyss, if you decide that it's too scary or too humiliating or whatever to really, really, really lose yourself in the music, the moment, if you decide to own it and never let it go, if you lock up a portion of the blood in the body, like let's say, sure, I'll forget my name, but I have to remember my wife's face. Or a Dharana object, like you're imagining a white square and you hold it and you hold it and you hold it and you can't lose it. Then the demon that we've talked about before, the Karanzan, finds that way in and starts trying to teach you things. But the things he's trying to teach you are nonsense. They're trails that lead to nowhere, and you feel really, really inspired by his text, and you follow him, and you follow him, and you follow him, and you end up in Da'ath, which is not a Sephiroth on the Tree of Life, but which we see a Sephiroth on the Tree of Life, a Sphirot on the Sphira on the Tree of Life, but which we see kind of between Chokmah and Bina, floating above Tifereth, and in certain diagrams, and that's Da'ath is knowledge, and you can't get to true understanding through knowledge, and that's the sphere where you become Black Brother of the Left-Hand Path, and they have all kinds of, apparently they can do illusions and little magic tricks, and they can be vampires, and they can live forever, but there's this weird specific way in which they live forever where they attain to immortality, but it's a nagging self-destructive immortality because they're trying to preserve themselves in a static state as one thing, and they can't. So instead of dissolving into the infinite, they dissolve into nothing and ultimately destroy themselves. And so, but you know, they can do a lot of big good work in the meantime. But all of the good works they do are, while they may be temporarily helpful, they're distributing false teachings, failed teachings. And so their works are poisonous, even if they're sincere, and when they're not sincere, they can be downright evil and terrible. So that's the White Lodge and the Black Lodge, and I think that's what we're dealing with in the town of Twin Peaks. And I didn't at first, but on a couple of rewatches and with a deeper understanding of sort of magic, I think there really is that the White and Black Lodges in Twin Peaks are not wholly fictional. They're analogs to what's happening in real life. Except that the White Lodge doesn't have arms in Twin Peaks, except for maybe the Bookhouse Boys. In the secret history of Twin Peaks, there's some conversation about the Illuminati and the Freemasonry, but really our quintessential magician, which is Dale Cooper, all he has is his little bit of reading about Tibetan Buddhism, which is really theosophy, and his yoga practice, the self-discipline of a federal agent, which is important. Being self-disciplined is like 90% of the whole thing, Crowley says that, I guess. And then his journaling practice, which is really rigorous and really helpful, where he sends his notes to Diane. So But on a spiritual level, the idea of like of the highly attained souls that intervene in very, very subtle ways in the background to communicate truth. That's that really is there in Twin Peaks, and I think it works analogously to the way it works in our world too. And you'll notice that the black school people who think that life is suffering may be much, much less inclined to lock up the blood in the body, because their philosophy is one of a denial existence anyway, whereas the white school people who think that their sense impressions are wonderful and interacting with the world is great might be more likely to want to preserve some of that, especially the relationship with the Holy Guardian Angel in the crossing of the abyss. Again, the black school people are not evil. They're maybe more predisposed to becoming initiated members of the Great White Brotherhood than they are of becoming black brothers of the left-hand path. So anyway, that's the sort of D&D alignment of the magical universe. You're defined by your school, your path, and your lodge. And so we can think about, we have those terms clearly defined if we use them at any point going forward in our Twin Peaks analysis.